Hey everyone! Welcome back to our channel. Did you know that one of the most successful and respected members of BTS today, Suga, almost didn't debut with BTS? Yeah, you heard that right. MinYoongi, aka Suga, the genius producer we know now, was once at the lowest point in his life and almost gave up on his dream. In fact, he was the one who decided to leave Bighit Entertainment. But there was one person who stopped him, and that person's decision changed the history of K-pop forever. Today we're going to unpack the full story of Suga's struggle that not many people know about. And trust me, this story will make you cry and feel inspired at the same time. So stick around until the end of the video, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on your notification bell. Okay guys, before we get into the main story, we need to understand who Suga really is and where he came from. MinYoongi was born on March 9th, 1993 in Daegu, South Korea. He grew up in a lower middle class family that experienced a lot of financial difficulties. Not a wealthy family, not a family with connections in the entertainment industry, just a regular family struggling to make ends meet. Since the age of 13, Suga started writing lyrics and learning MIDI musical programming by himself. Imagine, at an age when most of us were still playing games and not thinking about the future, he was already seriously learning music production. He fell in love with hip-hop after hearing the song Ragamuffin by the duo Stony Skunk, and from that moment, his life changed completely. Music became his escape, his passion, his everything. At the age of 17, Suga was already working at a music studio in Daegu, arranging music, making and selling beats. But this wasn't a glamorous job like you might imagine. He himself said that at that time he was more working than making music. His salary was barely enough for food and transportation costs. He often sold beats for only about $100 or even less, and worse, he was often scammed and not paid properly. In this very difficult financial situation, Suga still dreamed of becoming a professional rapper and producer. He saw a flyer about a rap competition/audition called Hit It, held by Bighit Entertainment. At that time, in 2010, Bighit was still a small, unknown company. But Suga felt this was his chance. During the Hit It audition, Suga didn't just rap, he also modified the beat given for his performance. He added his own identity to the instrumental, showcasing his production skills. And the judges were immediately impressed. Although he didn't win, Suga managed to get second place and was offered to become a trainee at Bighit Entertainment. But here's the interesting thing, guys. Suga actually didn't want to become an idol. His original plan was to become a producer only. He thought he didn't have the profile to be an idol. He was more comfortable behind the scenes, making music. But Bang Si-hyuk, the CEO of Bighit at the time, saw potential in his rap skills and convinced him to join the group being formed, which was BTS. To this day, Suga often jokes that Bang PD tricked him into joining the group. On November 7th, 2010, MinYoongi moved to Seoul to start his journey as a Bighit Entertainment trainee. And this is where the real nightmare began. Guys, trainee life is no joke, but for Suga, it was far heavier than you could imagine. Unlike other trainees who trained in dance 24/7, Suga had a different schedule. He only trained in simple dance, like 2 days a week. Why? Because Bighit saw his value as a composer and producer. So instead of practicing dance all day, Suga spent most of his time with the composers at the label and was even given his own studio next to them. Sounds like a privilege, right? But guys, this came with tremendous pressure. Suga literally stayed all night after night. He couldn't even remember how many days, while Bang PD sat beside him in that small studio until the song was finished. Even after debuting as a BTS member, his training as a composer and producer continued. He once told a story that for the most beautiful moment in life series, he had to do 30 revisions for just one song. 30 revisions. Guys, that's insane. But Suga's biggest problem wasn't about music or training. It was money. or more precisely, lack of money. You have to know, Big Hit Entertainment at that time was a very small and struggling company. They didn't have big funds like SM, YG, or JYP. And for a trainee like Suga who came from outside Seoul, the financial burden was very heavy. In Net's comeback show BTS DNA, Suga opened his heart about his financial struggles. He said, and this is a direct quote, "If I ate a meal, I didn't have money to take the bus. Even when I sold my songs, I wouldn't get paid properly." Guys, just imagine this situation. Every single day, Suga had to choose whether he wanted to eat or have money to take the bus home. There's one story that's very touching. In front of the studio where he worked, there was jjajangmyeon for $2 or about 30,000 rupiah. It's cheap, right? But for Suga at that time, $2 was a big decision. He always debated with himself whether to eat that noodle or not. Why? Because if he spent that money on food, he had to walk for 2 hours to get back to the dorm. 2 hours? Guys, in Seoul, weather that could be very extreme, both hot and cold. In episode 3 of the Burn the Stage documentary series, Suga admitted that he felt so helpless during his trainee days that he bought lottery tickets every week. Think about that. A teenager who should be focused on his training and music, but he was so desperate that he was hoping on luck to save his financial situation. Suga also had to pay his school fees himself. Big Hit at that time didn't cover tuition fees for trainees, so he had to work part-time to survive. And this brings us to the moment that changed everything, the accident that almost ended his career before it even started. To be able to pay for living costs in Seoul and his tuition fees, Suga was forced to take various part-time jobs. One of them was becoming a delivery man, delivering goods by motorcycle. This was a dangerous job, especially in Seoul with crazy traffic, but Suga had no choice. He needed the money. And one day, the worst happened. Suga had an accident while working as a delivery man. The accident caused serious damage to his left shoulder. In Burn the Stage, Jimin once brought up this topic by saying, "Remember, Hyung? There was Bangtan room downstairs. You fell down and hurt your shoulders." And Suga answered very honestly, "I told you guys that I fell down, but I actually had a car crash." Guys, Suga lied to his members about how he got injured. He said he fell when in fact he had a serious car crash or motorcycle accident. Why did he lie? Because he was scared. He was terrified that if Big Hit knew the real accident and how serious his injury was, they would kick him out. The doctor told Suga that he should not do any activities that could burden his shoulder. No dancing, no heavy lifting, nothing that could strain it. For a trainee who was about to debut as an idol, this was a death sentence. Imagine you've been training for years, you're finally close to debut, but suddenly you have an injury that could end everything. Between the serious shoulder injury and the desperate financial situation, Suga finally made the most difficult decision in his life. He decided to quit. He decided to leave Big Hit Entertainment and give up on his dream of becoming an idol. Just imagine what he felt at that time. All the sacrifices he made, all the sleepless nights, all the meals he skipped, all the times he had to walk 2 hours home because he didn't have bus money, all the beats he sold for almost nothing, all the revisions he did, everything seemed to be for nothing. His body was broken, his wallet was empty, and his dreams seemed impossible. But guys, this is the moment when one person made a decision that would change not only Suga's life, but also the history of K-pop music, and even worldwide. That person was Bang Si-hyuk. When Suga came to Bang PD and told him about his decision to leave, Bang Si-hyuk did something completely unexpected. Instead of accepting Suga's resignation, Bang PD said something very powerful. He said, "I will wait for your shoulder to heal." Let that sink in for a moment. At a time when the company itself was struggling financially, at a time when they didn't know if BTS would succeed or not, At a time when there were many other trainees who could take Suga's place, Bang Si-hyuk chose to wait. He believed in Suga's potential, in Suga's talent, that this injury was a temporary setback, not a permanent failure. But Bang Si-hyuk didn't stop there. He knew that Suga's main concern wasn't just his injury, but also his financial situation. So Bang PD did something absolutely incredible. He paid for all of Suga's tuition fees with his own money. Guys, this wasn't a company decision. This was Bang Si-hyuk, as an individual taking out his own money to help a struggling trainee. He wanted Suga to be able to focus on recovery and training without having to worry about money. He wanted to show Suga that he was valued, that he was important, that his dream was worth fighting for. Imagine how Suga felt at that time. At the lowest point in his life, when he felt completely hopeless and ready to give up, someone believed in him. Someone willing to invest in him, not just financially, but emotionally. Someone saw his potential when he couldn't even see it in himself. And Suga's decision? He decided to stay. He decided to fight through the pain, to push through the difficulties, to believe in himself because someone else believed in him first. And guys, that decision literally changed everything. But the story doesn't stop there. Even after deciding to stay, Suga still had to hide the extent of his injury. He was afraid that if Bighit knew how serious his injury was, they would change their minds. So for 7 years, yes, you heard that right, 7 years Suga performed with a serious shoulder injury. Every time he danced, every time he performed, every time he raised his arm, there was pain, chronic pain that never went away. But he never complained, he never stopped, because he didn't want to be a burden and he didn't want to disappoint the people who had believed in him. In 2020, Suga finally had surgery for his shoulder injury. 8 years of chronic pain were finally addressed. And you know what's most touching? When he announced his hiatus for surgery, armies worldwide supported him. They said, "Take your time, we'll wait for you," just like Bang PD once said, "I will wait for your shoulder to heal," years before. The story comes full circle, guys. From someone who was told to wait, Suga became someone that millions of people worldwide were willing to wait for. Now let's look at who Suga is today. He is one of the most respected producers and songwriters in the Korean music industry. He has produced and co-written dozens of songs for BTS that have charted worldwide. As AgustD, his solo artist persona, he has released several albums that are critically acclaimed and commercially successful. His songs like Daechwita have reached hundreds of millions of views. He has collaborated with international artists, he has performed on the biggest stages in the world, and he has won countless awards. BTS's collective net worth is estimated at over $60 million, and Suga is an integral part of that success. But most importantly, Suga remains humble. He never forgets where he came from. In his music, especially as AgustD, he often talks about his struggles, about his depression, about his anxiety, about the dark times. Songs like The Last and Amygdala are raw, honest portrayals of his mental health struggles and his journey. And what's most beautiful, he uses his platform to help others who are struggling. He's open about mental health issues, he encourages people to seek help, and he shows that it's okay to not be okay. There are several other moments from his trainee days that show Suga's true character. Brighton, a former Bighit trainee who trained with BTS, once shared a touching story about how Suga helped him. One night, Jhope, also known as Brighton, started feeling dizzy and nauseous after eating to the point where he was vomiting. Suga checked on Jhope in the middle of the night and saw how bad Jhope's condition was. Without hesitation, Suga called a taxi and took Jhope to the hospital. This was an emergency hospital that was more expensive than a regular hospital. And remember, Suga himself barely had any money, but he still paid for all of Jhope's hospital fees with his own money and stayed with Jhope all night. To this day, Jhope is very grateful for Suga's incredibly kind action. And this shows something very important about Suga's character. Even when he was at his lowest, even when he barely had enough for himself, he was still willing to help others. That's the kind of person MinYoongi is. Now, let's talk about the what-if scenario. What if Bang Si-hyuk didn't stop Suga? What if he accepted Suga's resignation? What if he said, "Okay, thanks for your time, good luck with your life"? BTS, as we know it now, wouldn't exist. Think about it. Suga is one of the main producers and songwriters for BTS. Iconic songs like Spring Day that he co-wrote wouldn't exist. The depth and maturity in BTS's lyrics that partly come from Suga's perspective wouldn't be there. The rap line dynamic with Suga, RM, and Jhope wouldn't be the same. More than that, AgustD as a solo artist who has inspired millions of people with his honest and raw music wouldn't exist. All the people who were helped by Suga's openness about mental health, all the aspiring producers who were inspired by his journey, all of that wouldn't have happened. And for Suga himself, he might have returned to Daegu, might have continued selling beats for peanuts, or might have completely given up on music. We would have lost one of the most brilliant musical minds of this generation. But thankfully, that's not what happened. Bang Si-hyuk's decision to wait, to believe, to invest in Suga when nobody else would, that decision changed everything. And this teaches us something incredibly important. Sometimes, all someone needs is one person who believes in them, one person who's willing to wait, one person who sees potential when they can't see it themselves. Bang Si-hyuk was that person for Suga, and because of that, millions of people worldwide have been blessed with Suga's music and artistry. Suga's story also shows that success is never linear. He didn't immediately become a superstar. He went through poverty, injury, depression, thoughts of giving up, years of hidden pain. But he persevered. He continued to work hard. And eventually, all that suffering became strength. All that pain became powerful music. In Suga's songs, especially as AgustD, you can hear the authenticity. You can feel the emotion because it comes from real experience. When he raps about struggle, about not having money for the bus, about feeling hopeless, that's not a metaphor or a story, that's his life. And that authenticity is what makes his music so powerful and resonant with millions of people. There's also another beautiful part of this story that needs to be highlighted. Suga never forgot the kindness that Bang Si-hyuk showed him. Even now, when the relationship between BTS and HYB is complicated as we've seen from recent RM statements, Suga always speaks with respect about Bang PD and what he did for him personally. In various interviews over the years, Suga always mentions how Bang PD sat with him all night in the studio, teaching him, guiding him, how Bang PD believed in his potential when he didn't believe in himself. That gratitude, that acknowledgement of someone who helped you, that's another beautiful aspect of Suga's character. There's also another story that shows how much BTS members care for each other. When Suga was about to take the Sunyoung exam, RM organized all the members to prepare lunch for Suga and write letters of support. Jungkook and V checked to make sure Suga woke up and was ready. This kind of brotherhood, this genuine care for each other, this is the foundation that makes BTS special. And ironically, Suga's injury that almost ended his career eventually became part of what makes him unique. His vulnerability about it, his honesty about his struggle, his openness about needing surgery after hiding it for years, all of that made fans love him even more. Because he doesn't pretend to be perfect. He shows that he's human, with pain, with struggles, and with victories. So guys, what can we learn from Suga's incredible journey? There are several very powerful lessons here. First, never give up on your dreams, even when everything seems impossible. Suga was at rock bottom. He was injured, broke, and ready to quit. But he didn't, and look where he is now. Sometimes we just need to push through a little longer, hold on a little stronger, and things will change. Second, surround yourself with people who believe in you. Bang Si-hyuk's belief in Suga literally saved his career. Find your people, your support system, people who will wait for you to heal, who will invest in you when you can't invest in yourself. Third, use your pain productively. Suga didn't hide from his struggles or pretend they didn't happen. He transformed them into art, into music that helps millions of people. Your struggles can become your strength if you choose to use them that way. Fourth, stay humble and grateful. Despite all his success, Suga never forgot where he came from or who helped him along the way. That humility and gratitude is what keeps you grounded and makes you relatable. And finally, be kind. Even when you're struggling, even when you barely have enough for yourself, if you can help someone else, do it. Suga helped Jimin when he himself had almost nothing. Kindness costs nothing, but means everything. Suga's story is a reminder that behind every success story, there's a struggle that not everyone sees. It's easy to look at BTS now and think they always had it easy, but that couldn't be further from the truth. Every member went through their own challenges, their own moments of wanting to give up. For Suga specifically, the fact that he almost quit, that he literally decided to walk away, and then became one of the most successful producers and artists of his generation, that's nothing short of miraculous. And it all started with one person's decision to wait, to believe, to invest. Next time you listen to a BTS song that Suga produced or an AgustD track, remember this story. Remember the delivery boy who injured his shoulder. Remember the trainee who had to choose between food or bus money. Remember the young man who almost gave up on his dreams. And remember how he became the Suga we know and love today. Thank you for watching until the end. If you were touched by this story, please hit that like button and share this video with fellow armies and anyone who needs inspiration. This story needs to be shared because it shows that no matter how difficult things seem, there's always hope. Subscribe for more deep dives into BTS stories and K-pop content. And leave a comment telling me what's your biggest takeaway from Suga's journey. I always read all the comments and love hearing your thoughts. Remember guys, whether you're struggling with school, career, relationships, or anything, just hold on a little longer. Your Bang Si-hyuk, your person who will believe in you, might be just around the corner. And who knows, maybe you'll become someone's inspiration story in the future. Stay strong, stay hopeful, and never give up on your dreams. I purple you all. See you in the next video.